on trial accused of strangling a woman has been found guilty. The jury handed down that verdict against Joel Hollendorfer yesterday. He was found guilty of manslaughter in the death of Kara Nichols. Her body was found just last year on his family's property in Black Forest, but she had been missing for over a decade.
It is February 8, 2022, and the ground on Burgess Road is frozen. Investigators have been out here before. Nearly a decade ago, they walked this same property with cadaver dogs and search warrants and left without answers.
The woman who owns this land met them at the gate and walked them across the acreage herself, pointing out horse graves, explaining years of burials, accounting for every disturbed patch of soil. And they believed her. They had no reason not to. But today is different.
Today they know what to look for. They know the exact coordinates. A dry patch of earth with a slight rise, designated in their records as GPR Site 03. They know because a man described it in detail, in his own words, to the one person he should never have told.
They know because that same man, when shown an aerial photograph of this property just days earlier, looked at that spot and said there was nothing there. 3 to 4 feet down, beneath a horse carcass, sealed inside 3 layers of black plastic contractor bags, and wrapped in gray duct tape, they find what remains of Kara Nichols.
She disappeared when she was 19 years old. It took the world a decade to find her. The question is not where she was. They are standing on the answer to that. The question is why it took so long, and whether the system failed her, or whether one man was simply very good at lying.
This is Crime Cracked, and this is the Kara Nichols case. If you are watching this for the first time, subscribe and hit the bell. Every case we cover is documented, verified, and told without filler. You will not find guesswork here, only what the record shows. Hit subscribe now so you do not miss what comes next. Kara Nichols was 19 years old in the fall of 2012 and living at 6710 Mission Road in Colorado Springs. By the accounts of the people closest to her, her life had not been easy, and she had not pretended otherwise. She had struggled with heroin addiction. Her father, Paul Nichols, who lived in Chicago, Illinois, acknowledged that struggle publicly, and did so without softening it, because Kara herself never hid who she was, or what she was going through. Post-mortem toxicology would later confirm what the people who loved her already knew. Residual codeine and morphine detected in her brain, liver, and muscle tissue, consistent with heroin intoxication at the time of her death. She was working as an escort. On October 9, 2012, the last day of her life, she posted an advertisement online under an alias, promoting herself as a sexy new blonde in Town 21. It was how she made money. It was the world she was navigating, and it was the world that would be used against her, both in her death and in the decade of legal proceedings that followed. But Kara Nichols was not defined by her circumstances. She had plans. Her father would describe those plans in the years to come, during hearings and press statements that became a long, grinding vigil for justice. She had a brother, Terry Nichols, who would later confirm what she told the people around her on that last evening, that she believed she was heading somewhere better. On the night of October 9, 2012, Kara told her roommates she was going to Denver for a modeling job. She relayed the same information to her brother Terry. Then she walked out the door. She left behind her laptop. She left behind her cash. She left behind her phone charger. She did not come back. At 9:58 p.m. on October 9, 2012, Kara Nichols' phone began making calls to a single number. Over the next 70 minutes, her device contacted that number 8 times. The last call was placed at 11:08 p.m. The final recorded network activity on her phone came at 11:59 p.m. The number belonged to Joel Hollendorfer. Cell site location information. The geographic data generated by her phone pinging sector antennas as it moved through space traced the final trajectory of Kara's device along a route consistent with travel out of Colorado Springs. That route terminated at a parcel of land on the 9600 block of Burgess Road in the Black Forest region of El Paso County. Land records confirmed the property belonged to John and Betty Hollendorfer, Joel's parents. What happened between Kara's arrival and 11:59 p.m. would take investigators nearly a decade to reconstruct. The account that eventually emerged, through a confession, a federal interview, and testimony given under oath, describes a sexual encounter inside a vehicle during which Kara Nichols was strangled. The El Paso County coroner, Dr. Leon Kelly, would ultimately rule the cause of death as asphyxia due to strangulation, with the manner of death designated as homicide. Dr. Kelly's determination came under difficult scientific conditions. By the time Kara's remains were recovered in February 2022, she had been in the ground for nearly 10 years. The advanced state of decomposition left no intact soft tissue. The skeletal remains showed no definitive mechanical trauma, no fractured hyoid bone, which can sometimes, but not always, be present in manual strangulation cases. Dr. Kelly's report was explicit on this point. The manner of death ruling was circumstance-dependent, not autopsy-dependent. The conclusion was built from the physical evidence, the nature of the burial, and the corroborated account of what Hollendorfer himself had told his ex-wife. After Kara died, Joel Hollendorfer buried her on his parents' property. The methodology was deliberate. He placed her inside 3 layers of heavy-duty black plastic contractor bags. He sealed those bags with gray duct tape. He dug a grave 3 to 4 feet deep. He co-located the grave with the carcass of a horse named Milo, one of the animals the Hollendorfer family had been burying on that property since 1985. He applied lime, an agent that accelerates decomposition and masks odor. Then he covered the ground, and he waited to see if anyone would find her. Paul Nichols reported his daughter missing. El Paso County Sheriff's Office opened an investigation. In the early weeks and months of the case, investigators chased the leads available to them. Witness sightings came in and went cold. An unidentified woman, described in initial media coverage as someone Kara had spent most of October 9 with, was reported to police but never located. That individual has never been publicly identified or formally cleared. That gap remains open. What kept surfacing across every investigative thread was one name: Joel Hollendorfer. The digital record was unambiguous. 8 calls between Kara's phone and his. Cell data placing her device in his family's territory during the final hour of her recorded activity. Records showing he had contacted Kara through her escort advertisement. Investigators brought Hollendorfer in. In interviews conducted in 2013 and 2014, he did not deny making contact with her. He admitted to calling the number in her advertisement, to communicating with her on the night of October 9. What he denied was the physical meeting. His account? He had arranged a rendezvous, but she never showed. He claimed a disagreement over the nature of the appointment. She performed outcalls. He had requested an in-call, had caused the arrangement to fall through. It was a story designed to explain the phone records without placing him at the scene, and for years, it held. On October 15, 2014, Detective Tammy Gugliotta of the El Paso County Sheriff's Office executed a search warrant at the Burgess Road property. Cadaver dogs from multiple agencies were deployed. Betty Hollendorfer met the investigators on site. She walked with them across the land, pointing out the locations of horse graves, cataloging years of animal burials going back to 1985. The animal gravesite explanations were credible. The dogs alerted on a secondary parcel across the street. Excavation there revealed an empty hole, dimensionally consistent with a human body, with roots that had been manually severed, but no human remains were found. The graves on the primary property, where Kara Nichols had been buried for 2 years, went undisturbed. The case went cold. If you are just finding this channel, this is the kind of work we do. Documented, sourced, no speculation. Subscribe now and hit the bell so these cases reach you. For the next 7 years, the file stayed open. The El Paso County Sheriff's Office maintained the investigation but had nowhere to go. Hollendorfer was out there, working, living his life in El Paso County. Kara Nichols' family was waiting. What broke the case open was not new forensic technology. It was not a witness who came forward. It was a confession that had been sitting in one person's memory for 8 years. In February 2022, FBI Special Agents Brandon Preet and Michael Willis initiated contact with Christina Hollendorfer, Joel's ex-wife. What she told them reoriented the entire investigation. Christina described a conversation that had taken place in 2014, in the immediate aftermath of Joel's father's death. They were in his vehicle. Joel, she said, was carrying something he could no longer hold alone. He told her he had killed an escort. He told her he had strangled her. He told her he had buried the body on top of a horse grave on his parents' property, wrapped in plastic bags with lime to speed the decomposition. The agents secured a second search warrant on February 3, 2022. Investigators returned to Burgess Road. What they were about to find had been 3 feet underground for nearly a decade. Do not go anywhere. But before they went back to the property, they brought Joel Hollendorfer in. The interrogation, conducted by investigators at the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, was methodical.
Detectives spent time establishing his current life, his job at a metal fabrication company, a new grandchild born the previous December, 18 years of claimed sobriety. They told him about Christina. They told him what she had said. They described the burial in specific detail, the contractor bags, the line, the horse grave. They watched him deny every word of it. Then they showed him an aerial photograph of the Burgess Road property and asked him to mark every location where animals had been buried.
Joel Hollendorfer marked the horse burial areas. He described locations in the front pasture. He identified a cluster near the barn and arena. He said nothing about the dry patch of ground designated as GPR Site 03. When pressed on that spot specifically, he said it was nothing. A dry patch. A high spot in the ground. Nothing buried there. In a separate interview room, at the same time, Betty Hollendorfer was talking. She identified that exact location, the dry patch, the high spot, as the burial site of her favorite horse, Milo. That contradiction was the last piece investigators needed. On February 8, 2022, they excavated GPR Site 03. 3 to 4 feet down, beneath the carcass of a horse named Milo, sealed inside triple-layered contractor bags and duct tape, they found Kara Nichols. Positive identification was made by the El Paso County Coroner's Office through forensic odontology, a comparison of post-mortem dental records against Kara's ante-mortem dental records. Secondary confirmation came from a surviving tattoo on her left ankle, the number 719, the Colorado Springs area code. She had been 19 years old when she disappeared. Joel Hollendorfer was a resident of El Paso County with a criminal history that spanned several decades. His felony record, formalized during subsequent habitual offender proceedings, included convictions for theft and attempted burglary in the late 1990s, the offenses that would eventually be used to enhance his sentence. Between 2012 and 2013, he accumulated misdemeanor convictions for harassment and protection order violations.
His court history also reflected a chronic pattern of non-compliance with judicial requirements, including more than a dozen failure to appear charges across various proceedings. At the time of Kara Nichols' death in October 2012, by his own account to investigators, he was using drugs regularly. He had used commercial escort services. He was living, as he described it years later, a fast and unstable life. After his father's death in 2014, he told Christina what he had done. The confession, as she later relayed it to federal agents, did not describe a calculated predator. It described a man who said something went wrong during a sexual encounter, that Kara Nichols had died, that he had panicked, that he had done what he did with the body because he did not know what else to do. He characterized it to the one person he trusted as an accident. That characterization would become the central battleground at trial. From the moment of his arrest in February 2022 through every subsequent interrogation, Joel Hollendorfer maintained his innocence. He told detectives he had never met Kara Nichols. He denied any physical contact. He denied any knowledge of what had happened to her. He denied knowing what was buried at GPR Site 03. He held that position across hours of questioning, through the revelation of Christina's account, through the specific details of the burial that only someone present could have provided. He did not break. He was charged with first-degree murder and tampering with physical evidence. The trial of Joel Hollendorfer opened in June 2023 in the 4th Judicial District Court of El Paso County, Colorado. The prosecution, led by the 4th Judicial District Attorney's Office, pursued a conviction for first-degree murder. Their theory was intentional homicide, followed by calculated concealment. The state argued that Hollendorfer had solicited Kara Nichols through her advertisement on October 9, 2012, that a physical encounter had occurred inside his vehicle, and that he had deliberately strangled her to death. The prosecution pointed to the burial methodology as evidence of a rational, functioning mind in the immediate aftermath. 3 layers of contractor bags, gray duct tape, quicklime, the selection of an existing animal grave to defeat cadaver dogs, and visual search. They argued these were not the actions of a man in blind panic. They were the actions of a man who understood what he had done and took deliberate steps to ensure it would never be found. The cornerstone of the prosecution's case was Christina Hollendorfer. She took the stand on June 16, 2023. She testified about the conversation in the vehicle in 2014, the timing of it, immediately following his father's death, the emotional context, the specific details Joel had disclosed. She described him telling her he had killed an escort, that he had strangled her, that he had buried her in a horse grave on his parents' property using plastic bags and lime.
It was, in the context of this case, the most damaging testimony imaginable. It placed the confession directly in his words, in his vehicle, in the year he was grieving a father he described as the center of his life. Before this jury comes back, if this case has stayed with you, subscribe now, hit the bell. Every case we document is cases like this one, where the truth was buried and someone spent a decade digging for it. The defense did not dispute that Kara Nichols was dead, or that she was buried on the Hollendorfer property. What they disputed was the intent required to sustain a murder conviction. Their strategy targeted the mens rea, the criminal state of mind, that separates intentional homicide from a tragic accident. The defense categorized Hollendorfer's conduct as tampering with physical evidence, conceding the burial while contesting everything that preceded it. They argued that Kara Nichols' death had occurred during a consensual sexual encounter and was unintentional, that her documented history of heroin addiction, combined with the physical circumstances of the encounter, had contributed to an outcome nobody planned. They attacked Christina's testimony as hearsay, emphasizing that the entire murder narrative rested on a single second-hand account of a private conversation, with no direct forensic evidence linking Hollendorfer to an act of intentional killing. They argued the elaborate burial was not evidence of premeditation. It was evidence of fear. The jury had to weigh a confession relayed through an ex-wife against the absence of forensic proof of intent. They had to consider the burial itself, whether 3 layers of contractor bags and lime applied to a body hidden in a horse grave spoke to a panicking man or a planning one. They had to decide what the law meant when it asked them to determine whether Joel Hollendorfer had intended to kill Kara Nichols or whether something simply went wrong. They deliberated. When they returned, they acquitted Joel Hollendorfer of first-degree murder. They acquitted him of second-degree murder. They convicted him of reckless manslaughter. The verdict is in. Stay right here, because what the judge does next changes everything. For Kara Nichols' family, reckless manslaughter was a result that defied comprehension. A man had strangled a 19-year-old woman, buried her 3 feet underground in contractor bags filled with lime, lied about it for a decade, and been convicted of the charge that carries a base maximum sentence of 6 years in Colorado. But Joel Hollendorfer was not going to receive a standard sentence. District Judge William Bain presided over a dedicated sentencing hearing. During that 4-hour proceeding, the prosecution established 4 prior felony convictions: theft and attempted burglary from the late 1990s, sufficient to invoke Colorado's habitual criminal statute. That statute authorizes the court to apply a 3 times multiplier to the standard maximum. 6 years becomes 18. And then, under the enhanced framework, Judge Bain sentenced Joel Hollendorfer to 24 years in the Colorado Department of Corrections. He will be in prison until he is an old man. It is not a murder conviction, but it is a sentence that reflects what the record shows about who Joel Hollendorfer is. Not just what happened on one night in October 2012, but what he did for the 10 years that followed. Paul Nichols had been waiting for this moment for over a decade. He had pushed for Joel Hollendorfer's detention before the trial, telling reporters and courts that a man who had hidden a body for 10 years and lied about it to investigators represented a danger to the community. This man never should get out of prison, he said. When the trial finally came, the hearings, the testimony, the defense strategy that leaned on his daughter's drug history and her work as an escort to frame her death as an accident, Paul Nichols sat through it. He described it as gut-wrenching. He said watching the defense's approach was almost unbearable, but he also said there was hope, that he had believed, across all of it, that there would be justice for Kara. The sentence gave him something. Not everything, but something. There are questions this case does not fully answer. The early investigation in 2012 identified an unidentified woman who had spent a significant portion of October 9 in Kara's company. That person was never located, never publicly identified, and never formally cleared. What she might have known, or seen, in those hours before Kara's final phone calls remains unknown. The interrogating detectives, during their February 2022 interview with Hollendorfer, referenced a Nissan Altima they claimed had been seized in 2015 and had yielded human DNA from the trunk area. No court record or verified press report corroborates that claim. Whether that evidence existed and what role it played in the prosecution's evidentiary strategy is not established in the verified record.
The question of what exactly happened inside that vehicle on the night of October 9, 2012, the sequence of events that ended with Kara Nichols dead, rests almost entirely on what Joel Hollendorfer told Christina in 2014, and on what a coroner determined a decade later from bones and circumstances. Joel Hollendorfer never gave investigators a truthful account. He took his version of events into that courtroom, let his defense argue accident and hearsay, and watched a jury return a verdict that did not call it murder. The burial itself speaks. 3 layers of contractor bags, grey duct tape, lime, a horse grave selected precisely because investigators had already looked there and walked away. Those choices took time, took planning, took materials someone had to acquire or already possess. Whether that constitutes the calculation of a man who intended to kill, or the desperate improvisation of a man who panicked, is a question the jury answered one way and Kara's family answered another. What is not a question? Kara Nichols was 19 years old. She left a home she shared with roommates, told them she had somewhere better to be, and never came back. Her laptop and her cash and her phone charger sat waiting for her return. Her father waited for 10 years. Her brother Terry waited, and the ground on Burgess Road held its silence through 2 search warrants and a decade of cold case files until one conversation, relayed years after the fact by a woman who had been carrying it alone, finally gave investigators somewhere new to dig. Joel Hollendorfer is serving 24 years in a Colorado state prison. He was convicted not of murder but of reckless manslaughter, a distinction that carries legal weight and that will be debated by everyone who followed this case for years to come. The habitual offender statute gave the judge a mechanism to impose something closer to proportional consequence. Whether the system delivered justice, or a version of it, or a compromise that falls short of the word entirely, depends on who you ask and what you believe the record shows. What the record shows with certainty is this. A young woman named Kara Nichols was buried 3 feet underground on a family property in the Black Forest, wrapped in layers of plastic and lime, hidden beneath a horse named Milo, and left there for 9 years and 4 months. The people who loved her spent that time without answers, without remains, without a grave to visit. The man who put her there looked investigators in the eye in 2013, in 2014, and again in 2022, and said he had never met her. He was wrong about one thing. The ground remembers what people try to make it forget. Tell us in the comments what you think about this verdict. Whether 24 years is justice, or whether the manslaughter conviction leaves something unresolved. And if this case matters to you, subscribe and hit the bell. There are more cases like this one, and they deserve the same attention. This was the Kara Nichols case.
Travesty. It's outrageous that this predator would murder our daughter, strangle her, degrade her, treat her like garbage.